Welcome back, guys and gals. We're here and we have a wonderful topic to talk to you guys about today, and it's going to be about responsibility, and we're going to dive a little deeper and also talk about accountability and some other really great topics associated with those things. Hope you guys have had a magnificent day, and we are going to dive right into this. All right, we have two surprises for this episode, okay? And we wanted to split it up. We were thinking, is two surprises isn't too much for a video. We're like, nah, we're gonna throw it in. We're gonna lay it all out there for you guys. So our first surprise, we changed our name. We changed our name from Content Cure to Understand You. All right, because truly these videos are all about you guys, and we want to help you guys understand everything about yourself. All right, and our other surprise. What is our next surprise? We'll get into that. Yeah.
Affecting somebody else's feelings. Today.
We look forward to seeing the comment. Our second surprise is we have a very special guest, Chance Ludostansky, here with us today. He drove all the way down to come and visit and hang out and record a video with us and give us his valuable input. We are ecstatic to have our first guest appearance on Understand You. Here he is.
Hey everybody, super excited to be here. Thank you Dan and Trace for having me on the show. You know, we like to talk about these issues together, off screen, so it's exciting to actually be here and be able to hang out with the guys and talk it through.
Thank you so much, Chance. We really are thrilled to have our first special guest ever on this episode. We're going to dive right in head first with the definition of what it means to be responsible. The definition that we're going to be using for this video is involving important duties, independent decision-making, or control over others or oneself.
All right. Why did we choose this topic? Responsibility. It's by far one of the most important topics, I think, that we could ever cover. And I find it hard to really address and really find the right words to describe this topic because of how vast it is. There's so much to it. Responsibility, right? What does it mean? And we gave you one definition. There are multiple definitions. But our biggest goal here is to help people take responsibility as much as they can so that they realize they have more control than when other people are responsible for things, right? When someone else is responsible for my happiness, then I rely on them. When someone else is responsible for getting me food and getting me whatever I need, right, then I rely on that person. Or money. If someone gives me money, I heavily rely on that person. And what does that make you do? What does that do to you, right? The reason I bring this up is because it's not bad to rely on people. It's bad to always rely on people for everything in your life, because that's what you end up doing. You start with one thing, one person, and it grows if you're not careful. If you're not realizing that you need to start doing things for yourself and that this is temporary with this person. Your goal is to be self-efficient, right? I mean, why have to rely on anyone when you don't need to? That's when life can bring you the most happiness. I truly believe that. It's not bad to rely on people. All right, it's perfectly okay, and that's something that, we're social beings. We need people. We do rely on people. That's perfectly healthy. But there's a certain point where this reliance becomes a dependence, okay? And when you start depending on people, you start losing the confidence in your own self to be independent. Because what do we see when those people that we really, really, truly rely on, what happens when they leave us? We feel detriment. We feel like they were a part of us and they're literally gone because of that dependence. All right? And that's part of life with relationships, but not with other things. There are a lot of things in life, like your success, your motivation, okay? Everything, everything pretty much. With that being said, we're going to direct the conversation and the spotlight on over to Chance.
All right. Thank you, Trace. So, responsibility is a huge deal, especially for me. I take it very seriously as far as how I conduct myself. So I found that earlier in my life, I like to be mischievous and try to get away with things, and I would lie about stuff and not really take ownership of my actions. And I learned very quickly that you're better off taking responsibility and accepting that, making a positive experience from it, and moving on. That's how you learn, that's how you grow. So that's why responsibility is super important for me. I'm very, wary to make excuses in the aspect of they don't really help you. They're more of a setback. That's a reason why I can't do this. So I'm already limiting myself and saying I can't do that because of this. That's where excuses come in. They build up, and it's a very contagious habit that I feel is very important for people to realize and try to keep scaling back that and accept your circumstances and move forward from there.
You're exactly right, Chance. And that actually brings me into something that I'm very excited to talk about today, and that is how easy it is to make excuses, to blame someone else, something else, or your circumstances for your shortcomings, for your mistakes, for not achieving your goals, not being where you want to be in your life, right? It's so much harder to accept the truth that nobody is responsible for you except for you. If you are unsuccessful, if you miss a due date in school, if you forget about a deadline at work, nobody will solve that problem or made that mistake except for you. And you just have to accept that.
I think the hardest part is understanding what are we truly responsible for, right? What am I truly responsible for in life? And what do I really have control over? And no, I can't answer that question for you. I apologize. I can't give you the right answer. That's something you have to find out for yourself. Just like I can't ask you for what I'm responsible for. That's up to me to decide. That's up for me to figure out. So the truth, right? Dan's talking about the truth of things. And that can be hard to digest, right? The truth is a lot of us aren't taught or educated the right way or what we're truly responsible for. That's something, if you're a 3-year-old and you're not so successful, right, then probably not your fault, okay? Probably most definitely not your fault. But if you're, what we consider ourselves adults at 18, right? By the time you're 18, you're supposed to be fully responsible for the laws and yourself and taking care of everything. Yet, most often, that's not how it works out. We get to be 18 and we're like, I don't understand a lot of these things. A lot of people get in trouble with the law and they think, well, oh, it's okay. Like, he just didn't know. And, but that's not how it works. They're never going to say that in court. Oh, you didn't know the law? You actually are given responsibilities, right? By the time you turn 18, whether you know them, whether you understand them or not, they are bestowed upon you. And where we get into trouble is when people don't understand that. People aren't seeing that what they're truly responsible for, and they want to look for blame other places. They want to look for other people to solve their problems because that's what kids do. And yet, this transition to adulthood is merely labeled, okay? It's not talked about, it's not educated about, not enough. And that's why we're here, to try and break down these topics so we can really understand what it is we're even talking about, what we're supposed to be doing.
I'm going to hit you guys with a little quote here in regard to what Trace was just talking about. And I'm sure it's something that everybody has heard before. And the quote is, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." And I love this quote so much in regard to what we're talking about because it really has to do purely with taking responsibility. If you're unhappy with your life, where you're at, what you're doing, you have to go out and change that. Nobody's going to come and hand you a job or hand you a promotion. You have to change your practices and change what you're doing in your own life to get there, to achieve those goals. And that's another point that I'd really like to touch on. Me and Trace have talked a lot about setting goals, and that's very, very important in taking responsibility. And if you don't have clear, concise goals set out in front of you, what are you responsible for? How are you taking responsibility over your life when you don't even know what you're doing? If you're unhappy with the way that the world works and with what's happening around you, you have to go get a job in a position that would change that. Not sit and complain about it and blame the people who have that job for not doing it. You have to go out and take responsibility and be that change.
Yes, the how. One of the most important things we touch on in these YouTube videos, that's one of our biggest goals, teaching people the how. Because we can tell you all about the what, and you can be like, oh, I really understand the what, but then you're like, okay, well then, how do I do it? And that's what we want to talk about right here, right? How do I do it? How do I be more responsible? How do I take responsibility, right? And Dan touched on it. He said set goals, and that will give you a direction, and that's perfect. That's a perfect way to start. another really good thing is to realize, okay, what do I have control over? And what can I truly have it, make changes in? Instead of asking people to do things for you, right? Hey, can you do this? Or can you do this for me? Can you help me with it? Can we do this together? Can you show me how you do it so I can do it better? Right? Because when we rely on people, they're not always going to be there. That's just the truth. That's just a fact of things, all right? And it doesn't have to be a sad thing. You shouldn't want people to be there forever. You should want to be able to go, yep, it's okay, and accept where you're at, and go, in the future, this is where I want to be. And Dan talked about that, right? Setting goals. That will really give you a clear direction. It's right. I mean, it's true. You can really find your responsibilities based on what you want to accomplish.
The how. Trace is totally right. You can't just identify the problem and expect it to go away. So we need to find out how to implement that. How can we take responsibility more so in our lives? And something very, hits home for me is blame. A lot of people will blame their position or their situation on other things, whether it be a person or an instance or whatever. And that's just a very, very deep rabbit hole to dive into. And it's something that it's really just going to keep you running in the same place. So kind of taking away from that, and make sure you're really trying to take control of what's going on in your life, taking that responsibility as it may be. And when taking that step back, you just want to take off those blinders, separate right and wrong, leave it out the window, and just analyze what you did in those steps and what the outcome was. Because you can't control whoever's actions, thoughts, anything, what they say. You can only have control over what you say, what you do, and how you're perceived. So, when looking back and trying to blame other people, if you see yourself and you look at those individual actions, you can make little changes here and there to shape your experience and shape how things go forward.
All right, guys and gals, that's a wrap. We're all done with this topic. It was awesome discussing it. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'd love to hear your feedback in the comments below. Share what your favorite part of this video was, and we're excited to see what you guys have to say and what your favorite part was. Today we covered the topic of responsibility. Dan gave us that great definition about what responsibility is. We kind of talked a little bit more in depth about what responsibility is, and then we talked about the how, right? My favorite part. How can you be more responsible? We discussed a little bit about taking a step back and really looking at your previous actions and trying to decide what you actually have control over, what changes you can make to better yourself. We actually set a benchmark today with our first guest on the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. It was fantastic to be able to share my ideas and thoughts about this topic with Trace and Dan here and all of you. So, big shout out to Understand You, and we'll see you guys around.
Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the video here. We really do appreciate it. As always, we're looking forward to reading the comments below and taking a look at your guys' input. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see all of you next week.
Sounds